Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. We are back in action. Thank you to Nate for holding it down there while I was gone. Also, shout out Mo, got on the show as well, gave you guys some winners as I understand it. We are back in full force now going into this 8-game slate that we have here for Wednesday. We're going to be looking at best bets in this video. We also have one up with play-up props as well, as we do each and every weekday, and we'll continue to do with no more vacations throughout the rest of this NBA season and postseason. Also want you to head to thelines.com while we're talking about it. Make sure that you are using that prop finder tool up there to make sure you're getting the best juice available to you from all these books that are giving us bets this NBA season. Nate, let's just get right into it, man. Get into your first NBA best bet here.
Yes, and I'm going with a similar pick to yesterday that did not hit, I will say, the Cavs going over against Boston, but the Cavs did find something at the end of that game, and look, I'll take the over again here with both teams on the back-to-back, Cleveland at Atlanta. It's 2:15 right now, very low for an Atlanta Hawks game. Granted, it's kind of a new Hawks team without Trae Young here the rest of the way, but I still think the number is incorrect in terms of Atlanta home games, averaging 247, but really more just about the spot. I mean, like, Cavs lost Evan Mobley. Jared Allen basically plays half the game on back-to-backs. He's playing like 25 minutes a game. He is an under machine. I have not felt so good about player props hitting as taking a Jared Allen under. But so with those two guys out, I mean, Cleveland is no longer a total top three defense. I mean, Isaac Okoro is also banged up. I don't know how effective he'll be. And we know Donnie Mitchell is out, which gives you some concern about their offense, certainly. But it's not going to look as disjointed as it did for 3 quarters against the Boston Celtics. It's just like an absolutely on a string defense that is just giving you nothing right now. Came into that game number 1 in every category and was going to totally throttle the Cavs offense until Dean Wade left his body and won that game, which, should have been, I won't even get into it. Like, it could have been an over if the Celtics had not just crapped their pants at the might that is Dean Wade. But Atlanta, I don't think we worry about any team scoring on them. Even though Trae's out, their defense has been a little bit better. They held the Knicks to 100 points. The Knicks missing 4 starters and forcing Dante DiVincenzo to shoot about 30 times, who he's played well, but he cannot be your only option on offense. They played the Brooklyn Nets twice and got crushed, by the way. So it's not like their defense is great. They're still, since the All-Star break, allowing the second most threes and third most three-pointers made. Second most attempts, I meant. 7th most assists, 5th most fast break points. And that's kind of where we expect the Cavs to keep pace here, right? With Garland kind of maybe trying to push the tempo and then just spreading it out with guys like Wade, Niang, Sam Merrill gunning away from 3. They do shoot 7 more threes and make 15 a game without Mobley versus with him. So they score 3 more per game. They also, you see the tick up in assists and 3-point percentage when Donnie sits, because they are playing that kind of style. So I think it's a fine matchup for them to keep scoring, and they have scored 121 their last 5 against the Hawks. Hawks have come back with 115, and that includes 95 when they were on a back-to-back the last time these teams met. Complete dud. And you say, like, oh, well, they had Trae. Like, it was a crazy different offense. And, well, Trae was awful. In his last 4, he's under 20 points per game, 39% of the floor, minus 65 against the Cavs. So it's not like he was dragging them to these points. I think DeJounte, Jalen Johnson, etc., should be able to score enough, and we do get the over here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm going to trust you on that one. That is not a game that I was able to look into specifically today, and I have some catching up to do when it comes to picking back up on, especially on these Eastern Conference teams. It was a little easier for me where I was to watch some Western Conference basketball, to be honest with you, which is usually the case anyway. I was just further west than I normally am. And so for the Eastern Conference games, it was a little bit less, but I hear what you're saying, having followed at least my Knickerbockers and watching them struggle with just everybody out at this point against those teams as well, like you were talking about. It would add up that this just got too low at this point, right? Like 214.5 in a game where, yeah, if these teams have figured something out shorthandedly without their 2-star guards, then yeah, I think that they're both going to be looking to score a bit more in a situation where the defensive players aren't really there necessarily for them to rely on it. Although Okoro has been pretty good on defense, I don't know that he's actually been giving them quite as much as what they wanted on ball to that degree. And like you said, he's a bit banged up as well. So yeah, there's going to be some opportunities here for offense on both sides. But I pivoted a little bit in the interim since we last spoke, Nate, like 10 minutes ago about this, and I am going under in this Lakers and Kings game in LA with Sacramento. I actually am looking at maybe like a 232-ish kind of total, 233, max 235 is kind of where I have it. And people bet this thing up from the 235 or so that it opened at, and you can get 238.5 now. So I'm going to zag on that and go under in a game where you go, well, when these two purple teams play each other, it's just a blur of offense. But it's like, hold on, not so fast, my friends, because when this game is played in LA, it's a much different story than when it's played in Sacramento. And that's the case overall for both of these teams in general, but especially in the last 4 games where they played each other. You got 2 games that went over, both at Sac, 2 games that went under this total, both at LA. And LA does have the 7th best defensive rating on the season at home. Games go a little bit lower when they're played at whatever the arena is called now. I don't even know. When they're played at LA, it does go a little bit lower because their defense is much better. It's about a 111 defensive rating at home for them, and they're giving up about 113 a game, scoring 118 a game. I would imagine that their scoring is still going to be there for them against this Kings team that continues to be bad on defense, especially, when they're playing, they continue to be bad on defense in general, but when they're playing on the road, we've seen this sort of, I don't want to call it just, it is an oddity to me to a degree, but it makes sense that they would sort of, their defense would at least get a bit better without the ability to rely on just run and gun offense. I would say their defense isn't even necessarily that bad in general. It's just that when they're playing at home, they play at that faster pace, and they don't really seem to care quite as much about the defensive end because they know that they can outscore you on the other side. And that's really just what I expect to happen in this one as well. For Sac, when they're on the road this season, far fewer points scored, 115.5 versus the 121 that they score at home, also giving up about 115, 116. So both of these teams averaging about 231 in this particular context, with LA playing on their home floor and the Kings playing away from home. And like I said, those last 2 at LA, nicely under the 238, both 235 or less in their last 2 so far playing there. I think some of the matchup stuff that's interesting is like the Lakers offense has been really good in their last 5 or so, with the 2nd best effective field goal percentage. I should say really efficient and pretty good. Both these teams have played a lot of really good teams as of late. And that's the only thing about taking LA to just beat the Kings in this one. Everything it does tell me that, like, according to recent numbers, this Kings team is not going to be able to hang with the Lakers, but they've played such good teams lately. I'm kind of thinking there's an opportunity for them to come back after a really, really bad loss to Chicago. Whatever you want to call that, that was a bad loss at home to the Bulls in a low-scoring game that it's not like they always win when they score more, to be honest with you. There's not necessarily a direct correlation to that. They need some bit of defense this season as well. I think the Lakers are going to force them to do that. LeBron is questionable. I expect him to play, but let me toss it to you by asking, like, is there something I'm missing with LeBron playing? Because I like the under with him playing, to be honest. They do slow things down a bit more at times when he's sort of in control of the half-court offense.
Yeah, LeBron has played through the questionable tag for like 3 straight weeks, and right. I don't see anything changing here with this being one of the most important games left on the schedule for the Lakers. Like, this is a play-in, playoff game implication game, which is why the total creeping up is very exploitable. I'm glad you pivoted this way. Like, we don't want to take an over in a playoff game at 238. I saw this creep up close to 240. Like, that's not the style that I think we're going to see here. It's going to be bogged down the stretch. Both these teams have struggled at times in the clutch, as we just saw with the Kings getting just murdered in the 4th quarter by the Bulls. That's the one thing that does give me pause about them losing again, is like when you give it up like that, you come out with a renewed focus. But I'll still take the Lakers. Lakers -2, 2.5 right now. I'll take LeBron and company, just saying, like, all the pressure of the legacy, whatever you want to say, the motivation to just not be like, I'm not missing the playoffs or being in that damn play-in of 2 years of my 5 here in LA, and just like having that on my resume. And that's why he's played through the questionable tag. So, like, as you asked me that, I think he's going all out for sure. He's averaged 31 a game on 35% usage his last 8 against Sac. They've lost 6 of their last 7 against this Kings team, which, some is matchup. Some is just De'Aaron Fox being a dude. He's 13-2, 32 points, 7 assists, 125 offensive rating. He has not been that dude since the start of February. 25 points, 109 offensive rating as he's dealing with knee soreness. That was his first game back after a couple games out against Chicago. He goes 20-10 with 5 turnovers and struggled in the fourth quarter as they got doubled up. So I don't think that he's going to be able to push the pace. That definitely helps your under when Fox is not rolling. Like, there's no way the Kings are, it's a huge discrepancy when he's not at his best in terms of how much they score and what the pace is. They're playing much slower in the clutch. And yeah, the LeBron thing, he only had to play 31 minutes against OKC last game because, OKC went on a back-to-back. I guess the Lakers felt like they had it in hand. The Lakers have actually won 5 of their last 6 when LeBron's played under 35 minutes the previous game, which is a correlation to me that he can be fresh. He can do what he does. Don't hate his props here for points and assists. And just think, the Lakers, like they've played good teams. Some bad teams. I think this schedule's been a little easier than the Kings, but they've only lost to Denver at home, and they've only lost on the road to a red-hot Warriors team and the Clips since the start of February. So, like, they've just taken care of business, and like I said, like the motivation to just get out of the play-in, or at least to the top half of the play-in, whatever they can do, is clearly driving them.
Yeah. Yep. It's coming down to it, man, especially in that Pacific division. Like we're talking about a lot of like the especially with those Lakers and Warriors here, which is my segue into the Bucks and Warriors game. And obviously, I wish I had a bit more information on Giannis Antetokounmpo, as I do think he's a legit questionable tag after missing the last game and having an Achilles tendonitis. That he
does have props up though, so
he does. They love to put props up no matter what for these superstars. You know what I mean? Like they're going to get the stars out as soon as they can. So. And Giannis, we've seen his questionable tags or his availability ping pong back and forth from starting at 10 a.m. in the morning until game time. It seems like it's gone back and forth a couple times. So I'm not necessarily going to try to predict what's going to happen. I think it's genuinely 50-50 at this point. Maybe you lean a little bit towards him playing since he missed one. But in this game, like, I still think with the under is ripe. Now it's at 227.5 now. I hit it at 228.5 and wanted to make sure I checked that just right now because it changed in the last basically hour and a half or so that this total dropped one more point to 227.5. I stop at about 226.5. That's where I'd stop going under basically, and don't have the nerve to do that. But right now, with the way that things are for these two teams, I do like the under in it. Milwaukee playing some very good teams in their last 10, especially on offense. Denver, the Clippers, Philly has been better on offense anyway. Minnesota, Memphis, not great. Obviously, Memphis there, but the defensive rating for them is not something that I think we look at and go, oh, this is a weird hoax. Like this is what they are now. They got Doc Rivers in there for the purpose of things like get back on defense and preach defense, especially in transition. So the transition won't be there for this Warriors team that hasn't necessarily been relying on it quite as much. And honestly, it hasn't been relying on it at home as well, which is why I continue like an under for them, playing at about a 96.5, 97 pace at home over their last roughly 5 home games. They have been playing faster in general over their last 10, but Milwaukee slowed things down a lot. And it's in part because they're limiting those transition points so well that their pace overall has gone down, rather than the fact that it's not like they were always trying to push it. I think they're fine playing in the half court at times. And if Giannis is a little bit hobbled, he's the dude who makes their pace go up. And that is clear in the fact that when he's in this season, and he's only missed 3 games, but with him, they have a 100.4 pace, and without him, it goes down to 96.9. And that is directly because of the fact that he is the dude who speeds things up. Dame isn't the guy that gets the ball and go, and Giannis is, right? And those are the two dudes who bring the ball up for this team and really control it. Chris Middleton controls it when he's in the second on the second unit. He's going to be out once more with this one, with once again lower calf tendonitis, ankle, all that stuff for him down low on his lower body that's injured, similar to Giannis. And we've seen them be very cautious rather with Chris Middleton's sort of tendonitis and his Achilles stuff. So I would consider that a real good reason why they might do that with Giannis. But really what we're talking about here is their number 1 defensive rating. Think about that in the last 5 games, not last 10 games and last 5 games, whatever sample size you want to use. this has been the best defensive team in the league. Something that if I had said that was going to happen maybe a month ago, I told you that you'd be like, well, what are you smoking? Because there's no way that this team is going to all of a sudden turn it around on defense. And they have to a ridiculous degree. The pace has gone down as a result. Like I said, the 3-point defense is another really big thing that they always kind of relied upon. They would sort of allow the guys that they wanted. We've talked about this a lot. They allow the guys who cannot shoot to pull those threes. I think they'll continue to see some of that, but really just overall, they've just really stepped it up big time on the defensive end, out on the wing. We've seen Marshawn Beauchamp get a few more minutes as well, which I think is a big reason, and a really tall, rangy defender that has helped them guard that 3-point line a lot better. Also helped them guard the mid-range a lot better. The Dubs do get into the mid-range a bit, but we know how much they rely on 3-pointers, and specifically above the break 3-pointers. Steph Curry teams above the break 3-pointers. That's what it's going to be, even with Clay. And then when, B-Pod is in there and other guys, like, they're still sort of running a similar style of offense of trying to shoot from up top. Obviously, Chris Paul changes things a bit when he's in there and only slows things down even more. But either way, like, the other dudes who are sort of playing in the same vein of Steph, they're relying on those above the break 3, second most in the league this season and over their last 10. And the Bucks have gotten much better guarding that position on the floor, in part because I think, to be honest, people don't want to talk about Dame's inability to play defense because it's not like he's always been this huge weak point, but like, he's not been it for them. There's a reason that they were so bad at defending the above the break stuff before Doc Rivers got there, and now they've been hiding him a bit more out on the wing. I think you actually see him out on the wing against a guy like Andrew Wiggins before you see him guarding Steph one-on-one to any capacity out there. He's always going to have help when Steph's bringing the ball down. That's been something that we've seen from Doc Rivers-led teams against the Warriors in general when he was coaching the 76ers. It was the same concept. It was like, he's one of those dudes like Mike Brown and the Kings who's like, yo, blitz Steph, get the ball out of his hands, and make sure that, there's no open 28 to 32 foot threes for Steph Curry, because there's one man in history where that's a layup other than maybe Dame Lillard, and that is Steph Curry. So I think that game plan coming into it is going to be such that, you're going to see this slow down a bunch, and that the 3-point shooting won't necessarily be as open for the Dubs. And I would just mention, in their last 5, like I was saying, really no transition points, scoring about 113 a game and allowing 111. And that's a big key for this Golden State Warriors team, is that the reason that they've turned things around, I know it sounds weird to say because they're still a 9 seed, but they're 4 games above 500. And just 3 weeks ago, they were 4 or 5 games below 500. So they've made a really nice turnaround in that sense. And it's been heavily predicated on the defense turning from absolutely nothing into something, only allowing 111 points per game since the All-Star break and in their last 5 at home. So I think this is a bit more of a defensive-minded game. The Dubs will have a bunch more guys like Kevon Looney in there if Giannis plays, to only help slow things down as well, because they need to build that wall with guys that can actually make a difference against Giannis, and that does hurt the offense a bit more for the Warriors, and that just completely affects the play style.
Yeah, I mean, the logic is sound here, and that's why it's been bet down to 226 as you're speaking, and people are all over that because of the recent game log. I don't disagree. To me, I think there's a couple factors here that make me just want to take Warriors, and it was -3, now it's -4. Mainly, I guess Giannis could sit. I don't think he's going to, but Andrew Wiggins back, a bit of an emotional lift there. And just coming off the 50-point blowout in Boston on 2+ days rest at home against the team that they have some success with. I mean, Steph has had a lot of success directly against Dame. If he does get that matchup, they might throw more Pat Beverly at him. Draymond has some success guarding Giannis. I could see this just kind of running away and the Bucks kind of going back to the drawing board, because yes, number one, defense. But let me just read you their schedule since the All-Star break. Minnesota, Philly, Charlotte twice, Chicago after a double overtime game, Clippers on a back-to-back. All are broken offenses right now, just if they weren't just broken for the entire season. So now facing the Warriors, a team that was cooking, I think maybe we do see some of those old cracks get exposed by Steph and company. I don't know if he's going to be the one scoring or what, but I think the Warriors do win this game if you do want to invest in that.
I get that. Yeah, I consider the Warriors, as it kept getting bet towards the Warriors, like you were saying, kind of indicated that Giannis might sit. I don't know that people would be so free to just start betting on the Warriors like that if they didn't feel strongly that he wasn't going to play. I think you take things seriously with an Achilles. It's one of those things where it's like, this isn't too serious for Giannis, but it is a potentially serious part of the body that if you lose that, obviously you're out for at least a season. So I don't think they want to mess around with that in a West Conference against a Western Conference foe on the road, like we're saying here. So it kind of might make sense that they would just sort of regroup back at home after a little bit of a road trip here. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page. We also got player props up for you like we do each and every weekday. So till we see you next, happy betting.